Hey, this is Tom Bentey Media. I am excited to bring you today a really cool guest from Jersey, Mr. Jeremy Slate. He is a public relations specialist. He has his own podcast about public relations and also about motivational and inspirational help for entrepreneurs to take their careers and their lives to the next level. He has a book coming out on June 7th, and he's here to talk about his career, his life, and what we can do as entrepreneurs to really take ourselves and our careers and our lives to the next level. So, Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us. I love that you're from Jersey. You know, I love Jersey. And let's start with your history. Where did you grow up, and how did you get to where you are today?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. And second of all, like I've considered moving many times and I just can't do it, man, because the food is just better here. Our pizza, like I've sent friends to New York before and I'm like, have the pizza here first, but when you have it in the city, you're going to find it's much better here, especially if you find the right places. So like, I don't know, man. I feel like we're very lucky to live here in Jersey with some of the best food. Bagels that actually taste like bagels, not like a Thomas's English muffin, and like a lot of good cuisine here, man. But in terms of like where I've come from, for me, my goal was always to be a college professor in life. And I did my undergrad degree at Seton Hall University. Then I did a program at New College, Oxford. I studied British literature. Came back and got my master's in ancient history. All of those skills are not very applicable to anybody hiring you for anything other than if you want to be a professor, which is really what I wanted to do at that point in time. But I only applied to one school for my PhD, which was NYU. I didn't get in. And after that point, I was kind of like, oh, well, I guess I'm not going to chase the dream that hard. And, in 2011, I came out of school with, a ton of debt, no real, job ideas, especially with the economy being in the shape it was at that point in time. So I had to figure out like what I was going to do with my life. And then ended up actually, painting houses during the day. I worked for an old school painter, where we did like those old Victorian houses, like they're in Morristown, where they're like 5 different colors and you have to do everything by hand and whatever. So I did that during the day. And then I was the nighttime manager at a gym. So I was working like 16, 17 hours a day, just being totally miserable. And I ran into a friend of the family that was like, hey, the private high school that I've been the principal at in Wayne is looking for teachers. If you come in, you can do that. You don't really need any experience. And I came in, and first of all, they don't give you any training. So like I'm in the room with like 40 kids and I look like I'm 12. So like it just didn't really work out very well. Like every day I was like not very happy. I was, miserable in doing that. And I wasn't used to smartphones either. Like that was like a new thing at that point in time. So like the kids' goals became, let's see how mad we can get this guy and put him on YouTube. That was literally my day every single day. And in 2012, my mom ended up having a really bad stroke. And it made me look at a lot of the different things I was doing in my life. And I'm like, do I want to do this for the rest of my life? And it started me like looking at things. So the first thing I jumped into was network marketing in 2013. Didn't know what that was. I thought I was actually applying for a job and, alienated a bunch of friends, made a bunch of money, but didn't like myself very much doing it. I went from there to then selling life insurance. I sold products on Amazon, but somehow managed to give away all of my products for $1. Don't ask. It was a really bad move. And that was the end of my business career. I ended up actually then working at a friend's marketing firm in Teaneck, building websites. And I started a podcast as a hobby. That podcast called the Create Your Own Life Show took off, had 10,000 listens in its first 30 days. And it's led me to talking to so many incredible people, speaking all over the world, all over the country. And eventually people said to me like, hey, can you do this for me? And that's, where our agency came from. It was originally called Get Featured Media. We had another co-founder at that point in time that I didn't really see eye to eye with. We built a great business that did multiple 6 figures in its first 9 months. And we just didn't see eye to eye. So we moved on from there. For 3 months, I had to figure out how to make money while still keeping the same staff we had. And as we transitioned to Command Your Brand, and since then we've, helped people to really get out there, build their brand, get the right PR opportunities. And it's been interesting, man.
That's awesome. How did you get 10,000 listens in a month? Like, did you do anything specifically, or it just kind of took off? And this is,
Well,
you said this is in 2014?
So 2014 is when I launched my first show called Rock Your Life. Absolutely horrible. Sounded like super life coachy, which I am like literally the furthest thing from. So like it just didn't sound very good. It was me with my old like iBook G4, so there was no like microphone, no nothing. It sounded like the parents on Charlie Brown, like wah, 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 wah. It just was really bad, man. So like I had screwed that up so bad that when I started Create Your Own Life in November of 2015, I had no following, nobody knew who I was. And I'm like, well, I crashed and burned the first time. If I like overdo it this time, like what's the worst that can happen? I just fail again. So I, had built a small email list. It had like 750 people on it. So I reached out to those people, said, hey, launching this new show, please subscribe because I know that's going to be the thing that really gets us out there. I sent out 3,000 individual LinkedIn messages by hand because I didn't know there was such a thing as automation. So I literally copy paste, change the name, copy paste, change the name. Texted every single person in my phone. And even like we would go out and I would grab people's phones and I'm like, so I'm going to show you how to subscribe to my podcast so that I can like, really get known. And it was just a lot of that stuff, man. There was no like special formula I applied. And that was when New and Noteworthy was still like a big thing where if you could get into it, you'd have 8 weeks of free promotion. And that really helped me to build an audience early on. And that led us to getting, that many listens in our first month.
That's great, man. That's really inspiring. And so, and it's just, it really goes to show you how innovative you were, because at that time, even though it's 7 years ago, nobody was thinking about podcasts. I mean, they were out there, but it's not like it is today. So just to kind of have that insight back then is really remarkable.
Well, it was kind of like waves of it too, because there was the first wave in like, 07, 08, people like Adam Curry and Dave Weiner and things like that. And then we had like, it didn't really take off because it was still like people had to download them and put them on their iPod at that time. I had the 130 gig iPod. I would download them and put them on there. And then, the second wave was really around like 2012 ish when like, John Lee Dumas launched EO Fire and some of those shows around there. And then we were kind of like that third wave in 2015 where there was started to be more of an opportunity there, but there were more shows. There were like, I think 250,000 podcasts at that time, and there's around 3.5 million now. So it was definitely a smaller base and easier to compete. But I'd also been a fan of podcasts my whole, adult life. My college professor in grad school actually introduced me to, podcasts. And that's when I had started listening. So that's like 2008-ish. So I'd been a listener for a really long time. And the reason I hadn't started, because I was like, well, number one, who's going to want to listen to me? And number two, like, I don't really know anything. It seems pretty complicated.
But you went ahead anyway, and it was really successful.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great. So let's talk about your insight in terms of working with clients. And it says you really hate being a life coach, but it definitely sounds like you have some insights in terms of motivation and inspiration in terms of what individuals can do to really help themselves be more productive. So please talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I feel like, I'm not one of those people that's like, just decide how much money you want to make and you're going to make it. Like, it's just like life isn't like that. Like you do have to have goals and things like that. And I feel like a lot of what I've learned is more about like hard work and goal setting and continually doing the same thing. Like, I don't know, man, I've been a fitness freak since I was 17, but I've literally eaten the same thing for lunch for, 15 years now. So it's like, it's things like that I've realized that's actually what it's all about. It's, I at one point in time in my life, I was benching 455, but, I got there by doing something called linear progression. That's 5 pounds a week for a bunch of weeks until I eventually got to that. So I think that is actually what it looks like in getting to your next level. It's finding out what is that single thing you can do every single day that's going to make you better than the day before, and not just think like, okay, the skies are going to open up for me and I'm going to have all these things. And, I just have to manifest the money and it's going to be there. Like, it's about hard work. It's about integrity. It's about showing up. And the bigger thing is like, I think a lot of people shy away from the idea of adversity. They shy away from things being hard. They shy away from things being difficult. And those hard and those difficult things are actually where your biggest learning points are. I think one of the worst things they did was give everybody a trophy just for showing up. And frankly, You need to win. You need to learn there's winners and losers in life. And I've learned, by losing, what it's like in that moment and the things that I can do to win. And I think that's what it's about to actually get into your next level. Okay, so this didn't work out. What can I take away from this? It's an opportunity. Where can I see where this is in time to grow? And how can I compete at the next level? So to me, like, I think that's where the difference is from being really life coachy. It's, learning about hard work, showing up every day, and how you can better yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely. I mean, I think understanding that adversity is and challenge is actually part of the process, and we should not only anticipate that, but enjoy that process. And I think a lot of people, myself included, when I was younger, like seeing something was difficult is this just horrible thing that I was trying to avoid. But as I got older and I got more confidence in myself, and I learned that the only way to improve and to progress in your life is to take that challenge and to really just go with it head on, like take it
Yeah.
head on and just enjoy the process, whether you're talking about sports, whether you're talking about fitness, whether you're talking about some sort of a creative endeavor like writing or becoming a better public speaker or actor. You really have to say, this is a challenge. This is where I'm at. I want to get to the next level. Let's enjoy this process. Like, let's be
Yes.
motivated by this adversity and enjoy it. And that's the only way you're going to progress.
And that's so true. And I know the Jets fans out there are going to hate me for this, but like, I think Tom Brady's frankly one of the best examples of this, right? Like, it's something I call in my book a Mo Lewis moment. Mo Lewis, who played linebacker for the Jets at that point in time, takes out Drew Bledsoe, and a little known quarterback that was a third string guy that became a second string guy, becomes a starter, and then starts for 22 years, was Tom Brady. He barely made his high school team, starting by his senior year. His senior year at Michigan State, at Michigan University, he competed with Drew Henson to kind of be the starter his senior year. And it took him 2 years to start in the NFL, but he worked harder. He watched film. He worked longer. He worked later. Um, and it was that willingness to show up and practice like that made him the best. And you even look at like somebody like Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant would go and he would shoot foul shots for hours when the gym was closed, when it was dark out, when it was like 2 a.m, because he wanted to be the best. And I think that's what it comes down to, man, is a commitment to hard work, finding, and there is no edge. The edge is getting better and improving and knowing what your opponent's going to do before your opponent does it.
And like you said, it's also about consistency. And I think something that a lot of people deal with too, and myself included as well, is this isn't about being a manic. Like, this isn't about, like, in my view, like just going over the top because, and like, working 20, 22 hours a day because you're going to
Bingo.
burn out. It's about consistency. Like you said, having good habits that you do every single day that become your life. And if that's your life, then that's going to really progress you. And you talked about, if, eating the same thing every day, but if you wouldn't mind, talk about some of your habits that have really led you to really gain success, both financially, physically, emotionally. What is your day-to-day like?
Well, so the first thing I'll say is I feel like a lot of people like to paint like rosy pictures of their habits. Not every day is perfect, right? Like, things happen. You know, I've got 2 daughters, so like life definitely happens. I've been married for a number of years, so like life happens. I just want to say that, so people shouldn't be discouraged by the days your daily habits get interrupted, because they will. By living, it will happen. But for me, fitness has always been the primary thing in my life. I was a competitive powerlifter in my early 20s, and I've continued to do those same things every day. So when I wake up in the morning, I'm usually eating first, drinking way too much espresso, but like, it's the thing I need in the morning. I was talking to somebody about this yesterday, and I showed them the size of my cup, and she goes, "And that's all espresso?" And I'm like, "Yes." But that's one of the things for me that I need in the morning. But I don't have coffee all day. Then I used to be a coffee fiend, and I found I wasn't a very happy person when I was drinking 9 cups of coffee a day. But anyway, so that's one of the things I start out with in the morning. And from there, having breakfast, I'm going to the gym, coming back and taking a cold shower, because it really helps to, number one, wake you up like you've never been woken up before. It helps increase your, fat burning ability, as well as helps your body's ability to fight disease. It actually helps your immune system. So that's one of the things I do when I come back. And then I don't answer emails before or take appointments before 10 a.m. because that way I can handle me, my family, and all the things I need to handle before I do that. So then when I get into work, I can really get into work. And I tend to book a lot of meetings, midday to afternoon, so that I can handle emails, so I can handle phone calls, so I can handle that stuff in the morning. And those are really the things that are tried and true and important to me. And at the same time, unless I'm traveling for speaking, I keep weekends off limits, man, because you need to have time with your family, right? Like if you're not having that, then why are we doing all this? And I think that's what's really, really vital. And even like last week was my wife's birthday. We took off 2 days and we went out to Great Wolf Lodge and took the kids out to, do some swimming and stuff all day. I think you need to make time for the things that matter. And that's why we build these businesses and that's why we do the things we do. But I think sometimes people lose sight of that stuff, and that can be really hard.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, very similar mindset. Now I'm single. I don't have any kids or a wife, but I do schedule time where I can either do recreational activities like biking or surfing or snowboarding. And fitness is a big part of my life as well. So every morning I wake up and I do my calisthenics for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and then I do cardio for about an hour. And that kind of starts my day. Consistently I'm having green veggie shakes and veggie protein shakes. And then I start my day essentially like 9 or 10 o'clock. But
Yeah.
it's the consistency in it all which really builds and progresses to little daily habits that promote really long-term goals and growth.
And the thing is too, that I think it's really important that you said, like, you schedule time for these things. I think so many times people say, oh, I don't have time for it. It's like, well, if you don't make time, you're never going to have time, right? As a person, you are the one that creates time. And, if you can schedule those things you want to do, do it. Like one of the other big things in my day is I block out what I'm doing and when I'm doing it, right? Like we do finances once a day on a Monday morning. So you want to find out what part of your week or what part of your day is when you're going to commit to different things, because when you can focus on single tasks, you get things done a lot faster. Because, when you can start something, change it, and stop it, you create time. And I think that's one of the biggest things as a person you need to understand. So you can control your schedule, you can control a lot of how you react to things.
Definitely. I'm so much about organization. Everything in my life really has to be organized, both professionally and personally, because it just helps me to achieve more and to have more fun and success, really.
Yeah.
I'm the worst when it's like, well, I don't know what I'm doing, or even, it doesn't work well for my personality. I really enjoy having everything kind of scheduled so I know what to expect and how to anticipate. But that's cool, man. It seems like we have very similar habits and mindsets and points of view. So why don't you tell us about your book that's coming out? You said it's coming out in June, I think June 7th, and tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I have a book coming out on June 7th. It's called Unremarkable to Extraordinary, because I think really we all start unremarkable, right? We may have a little bit more opportunity, we may have a little bit less opportunity, a little more money, a little less money, but we all essentially start with the same ability level. And I think it's those of us that are willing to, commit to the hard work, commit to showing up every day, commit to making yourself a little bit better every day, and realizing the opinions of others shouldn't really matter to what you do or don't do. Because I think so many times we want to, live our lives for people that aren't willing to die for us, right? You get to 30 years old and you're like, well, shit, man, I'm not very happy with, sorry, I'm not sure if can I swear on this show? Sorry about that.
Sure, that's fine.
I just went very Jersey on that one. Shoot, man, like, how did I get here, and why do I hate my life? And I think, one of the reasons we take a look at, like, maybe you went to the school you went to because it made your parents happy, or maybe you picked the career you went to because that's what your friends were doing, or maybe you picked the job you're in because, it was going to make whoever you were dating at that time happy. And you have to realize, and this isn't a bit about being all about yourself, but you have to realize, if you're not happy, if you're not able to show up as the best version of yourself in everything you're doing, then all other parts of your life are going to suffer. And that's why you have to look at not making choices because others want you to make them. You have to make them because they align with your personal goals, your personal integrity, and the impact you want to make. And that's one of the biggest things, man, is people alter their life because what others want for them. So, really is what I've distilled down is a lot of the knowledge I've gotten from, four-time Indy 500 champion, the former CIA director, professional Hall of Fame athletes. And I've taken the things that mattered to them, that helped them to become the best in their area, And I've tried to make this very reachable for people, in my book, Unremarkable to Extraordinary, which has taken me a couple of years to put together. Cause frankly, I know people out there have probably thought about this, like, should I write a book? Shouldn't I write a book? And I think one of the things we always tell ourselves is I'm not ready. And I had to realize that, timing was never going to be perfect, but the time was now. And that's coming out on June 7th. It's available in Barnes and Noble, Amazon, anywhere books are sold. And I'm just excited to get out there, man.
That's great, man. Congrats. That's really cool. And
Thank you.
how'd you get access to all these interesting people?
Being persistently annoying. That's what it's all about, frankly. It's like, how my show started is because I was willing to just stupidly do too much to get it in front of people. And, I've gotten really good at figuring out how to reach out to people and get in front of them. Like, one of my favorite things is contactanycelebrity.com. It's a really great way to actually get in touch with people. So I've used that one for a bit. Around 2017, I got a blue check mark on Twitter. And that was actually, believe it or not, you get a second timeline and stuff like that, where you can only see other verified people. So I've had a lot of ability of actually using Twitter is one of my favorite tools to get in touch with people. So I've used that to actually get in touch with a lot of, well-known and famous people for podcast interviews. So it's been consistency. It's been showing up, but at the same time, it's been like stupidly being persistently annoying. That's the thing, man. I've been running the same spreadsheet of people I've been following up with for 7 years now, and we always consistently follow up.
That's really cool. Do you have any speaking engagements coming up?
So I'm actually going to be speaking in Atlantic City in, I think, about 2 weeks, and then I'm speaking in Austin, Texas in May. So a lot of great stuff happening, man.
Oh, cool. What's the Atlantic City date? Maybe I'll try to check it out.
It's at the Hard Rock. I think we're still not like firmed up on it, but I think it was supposed to be. We're looking at the second week of March. And I don't remember which the organization is. I'd have to check with my team on that.
All right, cool. And when you're at these speaking engagements, what do you generally talk about, and what's your motivation behind speaking to a group?
So usually I'm talking about like PR strategy. I'm talking about branding. I'm talking about getting in front of the right people, like how to craft your story. Because like the environment we're in now, a lot of our selling is done socially. And if you're not set up in the right way, if you're not making it so people find the right information about you, like, you're really at a disadvantage. So, that's one of the biggest things that I'm doing. But I also, when I do speaking, I do it in a weird way. I tend to just introduce myself and say, I always have my prepared talk, but I start with, what are you guys looking to learn today? Because I think one of the things a lot of speakers do is they don't really survey the people that they're going to be talking to make sure, like, okay, yes, I'm going to be talking about this topic, but what are your viewpoints on it? So I know how to speak to those viewpoints. That's been one of my most successful things with doing speaking.
Cool. And what are some tips that you can relay to the audience in terms of personal branding and really just personal social media, and how you can best present yourself socially?
Well, I think the big thing is something that everybody can do, and I call it the small pond strategy. Everybody's a big fish in a small pond somewhere. And this is something you can apply whether you're a roofer, whether you're a marketing company, whether you're a best author, is you find the small ponds you're a part of. I grew up in a small town, 5/8 of a mile in size, called Hamburg. Nothing happens there, like literally nothing. Babe Ruth used to go there in the 20s. That's to golf. That's about it. So like we had a small publication that went to every house in our county, and then also Morris County at that point in time. So since no news happens there, as long as you wrote a press release by Tuesday and got to send it out with them, they would print it on a Thursday. So it also has an online component. So it would show up in Google News and things like that. So what you would actually do then is you build up a lot of these small media pieces in, like Seton Hall mentioned me in their magazine that goes around to all the alumni. I was in the Bergen Record. So I've managed to get a lot of these small publications to talk about me. And when you do that, it gets picked up in other places through press releases. So like that's how I got on, New York Channel 1 for the first time, was when a producer was reading the Bergen Record. And they're like, oh, podcasting. I don't really know anything about that. I'd love to have somebody on and talk about that. So for me, it's finding those places where there's no competition. It's easy to get attention, and you start there. And, running press releases is really the way to do it. And I think a lot of people have a misunderstanding of how a press release works. A press release isn't the media piece itself. It's something you use to get media pieces. And, by doing that and getting that out there, that's been a huge way to build my brand locally. And that's how I've gotten in other places like the Forbes and the Inc. and the stuff of the world. But you got to start small in order to do it.
Very cool. Very cool. So what's next for you, Jeremy? I mean, do you have any other goals besides being in public relations and branding? Do you just want to work with that and take it to the next level, or do you have other interests and goals you want to focus on going forward?
For me, I've realized that 2022 for our company is really the year of education. And it's about, educating our public better, teaching people more about the public relations sphere and about the podcasting sphere. So we're really focusing down on, getting more courses and more training and more things like that out there, because, that is how you kind of break through all the noise, is you become an education company. I think we're seeing this with a lot of the brands that get it. If you want to, be the best in your space, you have to be teaching people about what you do and about what you do in your area. So really, that's what we're looking at for 2022, is becoming the go-to in public relations and podcast education.
Cool. Awesome. And just to sidetrack here, you say you're a fitness expert. You've been involved in fitness for most of your life. What are some tips you can provide that you've learned in terms of diet and exercise that can really help individuals out there that are looking to get into better shape?
Well, number one, it's consistency. As I said, like, I feel like that's like the mantra of my life, consistency. But like, that's really one part of it, but you find something that you can do every day. Like, I think that's the biggest thing. And I picked up a workout when I was 17 that I still do to this day. It's called the Max OT. And what it is you do 80% of your max for a minimum of 4, but a maximum of 6 reps for only, 8 to 12 total sets per workout. And that has helped me to really, maximize what I'm getting out of things. And I'm only doing it for like 35 minutes. So because of that, I've been able to, get up to benching 455, squatting 705, deadlifting 635, and leg pressing 1,700 pounds. But that was all from doing the same workout, progressing, 5 to 10 pounds a week for many, many years. So you find what you can do every single day and show up to do, man. Like, that's the biggest part to it. And at the same time, like, you have to realize the nutrition part of it is vital. I used to do something for a long time called If It Fits Your Macros. And that's where, if you're making your, your macronutrients fit what you're eating. So that's, the amount of protein, the amount of carbohydrates, the amount of fats you have to have in a day, rather than calorie counting. And I've kind of eventually realized an easier way to just like look at my plate and be, all right, what percentage of my plate is carbs, what percentage of my plate is fats, and what percentage of my plate is protein. And based on that, that's been one of the easiest ways to predict what I'm doing. So I know that's like a lot of stuff, but those are two things that have been really, really vital to, my training regimen.
So it sounds like you're not subscribing to any of like I don't want to call them fads, but like the different things that arise, like keto or Atkins or
dude, the things that have always work. So that's why I'm not one for fads.
Gotcha. And I know you're proud to be from Jersey. We were talking about that in the beginning of the show. If you wouldn't mind, tell us like what you love about living here and what are some of your favorite aspects of the state. I know you love the food, but what are some other things? And also, in terms of food, what are some of your favorite restaurants? I'm a big restaurant person. If you can give us some recommendations, that would be really cool as well.
So you're gonna laugh at this, like, being from New Jersey. So like, I know where I grew up, there wasn't like great pizza places. So my parents always got Domino's. So I didn't like pizza until I was like 21, because like my idea of pizza was like this crap my parents used to buy. But then like I eventually found out, wow, I really love pizza. I know there's there's actually 2 locations in this area. Dominic's is one of my favorite pizza places. There's one in Ogdensburg and one in Newton. I think they've been trying to get Barstool Sports to come and do like the pizza tasting. But they're like super, super good pizza. So they're good. They have a good grandma's pie, which is great. A big chicken bacon ranch fan. That's good as well. And then, I know you're a pork roll guy, but Taylor ham, egg, and cheese, man. Always the way to go, which is good as well. But here's the other aspect that I think people only from New Jersey appreciate. When I was in college, we bought those Weird New Jersey books, and we went to you're familiar with Weird New Jersey?
Yeah.
Okay. We went to a lot of those crazy locations. And let me tell you, man, like if people have not bought a Weird New Jersey book and like, went and looked for like, through like the crazy mental institution down by Trenton, and they've went and looked at, the missing animals in West Milford and stuff like that. Like, dude, there's some really, really interesting stuff in those books. So we've been kind of like weird New Jersey tourists as well.
Yeah, I love going to the Pine Barrens, and that's always a favorite spot for
Looking for the
me.
Jersey Devil.
Looking for the Jersey Devil. It's pretty wild down there. It's just so vast, and there's just so much
They're
history there.
weird pine trees too, because they're like these like really, really tall ones with like, like only halfway up they have branches. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And I think that has to do with the water filtration underneath. And that's why the area cannot become developed, is because we get most of our water from that area. So it's kind of set in time. And there
Yeah.
are people that live there, and it's a pretty wild place. And some crazy things have happened throughout the years there, and in terms of just sightings and missings and things like that. But that's a really strange place in New Jersey that I enjoy hiking and biking at. Hey, thanks so much, Jeremy, for all your insight, input. I found it very motivational, very practical too. It seems like if you abide by a lot of things you're talking about, particularly consistency and focusing on specific goals, you can really be productive and be fulfilled. So why don't you just leave us with some final thoughts and anything you'd like to promote, or any way we can reach out to you and get in touch with you?
Yeah. I think it's interesting because I think there's this lie going around in society, and it's this idea of, if you just kind of bide your time and, whatever, eventually things are going to come your way. And it's like, it's hard work, man. It's consistency. It's showing up every day, and it's trying to become the best version of yourself that you can. Like, that's how you get there. That's how you put yourself in position to win. And I think when you're able to do that, like, you're going to find yourself getting luckier, right? Like, luck is when hard work meets opportunity. And I think that's what it really comes down to. And when you can realize that, and when you can put yourself in those positions to get luckier, you're going to do a lot better in life. And I think there's going to be a lot more success your way. So the best place for people to find me, I know we talked a little bit about the book. They can grab that over at getextraordinarybook.com. It's available for pre-order, as well as checking me out on the company side. I'm over at commandyourbrand.com, or the personal side, I'm jeremyryanslate.com.
Cool, man. Well, we'll be in touch. Thanks so much for all your insight and input, and let's definitely do this again, brother.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on today, Tom.
Take care, man.